The stage set tonight for what may be the most explosive testimony in this impeachment inquiry yet. John Bolton, the former national security advisor, asked by House Democrats to answer questions behind closed doors next week. It's not clear if he'll show, but if he does, his appearance could be critical. According to other witnesses, Bolton repeatedly raised concerns about Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, and his interactions with Ukraine. It comes as we're learning new revelations from a combat veteran who worked on the National Security Council, drawing a direct line between military aid to Ukraine and the president's push for political help. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman describing the money as contingent on the investigations into the president's political rivals, according to two sources familiar with Vindman's closed-door testimony. Vindman also told lawmakers he tried to add back to the White House rough transcript of the July call between President Trump and the Ukrainian president key omitted phrases about the Bidens, for example. Sources say Vindman did not ascribe an ulterior motive to those omissions.
He testified that in two occasions, the ellipses, the ... should have been some words. Some people may see them as significant. I don't see them as significant.
Today, more depositions from career officials, one of whom says Bolton warned him Giuliani could be an obstacle to the White House relationship with Ukraine, according to his opening statement obtained by NBC News.
There were a lot of professionals in the administration in foreign policy who were deeply disturbed by the fact that President Trump allowed the creation of sort of this other group, a parallel group.
Late tonight, the White House says the suggestion Vindman wanted to add words to that rough transcript is false. And we're also now learning from John Bolton's lawyer that Bolton is not willing to appear in front of Congress voluntarily. Keep in mind, though, he could still be subpoenaed.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.